Good Thursday, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 20th. Today we are reading together from Job chapter 15. Job chapter 15 is on the schedule for today, and it is the beginning of the second cycle or second series of speeches that are given between Job and Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. And we are going to see today this first speech given by Eliphaz as he responds to what he has observed from the previous cycle of speeches. He is going to, let's just say, turn up the heat a little bit on Job, as he is going to very much make some judgments of Job. He is going to make some claims concerning Job's character and his motivations and his heart. But then again, he's going to say some true things. He's going to say some things that are true. But as we have seen numerous times as we've looked through this text, just because something is true doesn't mean that it is being rightly applied to a specific individual. So we're going to see that as we read throughout this text here in Job chapter 5. Let me go ahead and get Job 15. Let me go and get Job 15 up on the screen for us. Here we go. And let's read together beginning verse number 1. Again, this first speech in the second cycle from Eliphaz the Temanite. He replies, verse number 2, does a wise man answer with empty counsel, or fill himself with the hot east wind? Should he argue with useless talk, or with words that serve no good purpose? But you even undermine the fear of God, and hinder meditation before him. Your iniquity teaches you what to say, and you choose the language of the crafty. Your own mouth condemns you, not I. Your own lips testify against you. Were you the first human ever born? Or were you brought forth before the hills? Do you listen in on the counsel of God? Or have a monopoly on wisdom? What do you know that we don't? What do you understand that is not clear to us? Verse 10, both the gray-haired and the elderly are with us. He's referring to the arguments made by himself and Bildad and Zophar. Even the words that, verse 10 again, both the gray-haired and the elderly are with us, older than your father. Are God's consolations not enough for you? Even the words that deal gently with you? Why has your heart misled you? And why do your eyes flash as you turn your anger against God and allow such words to leave your mouth? What is a mere human that he should be pure, or one born of a woman that he should be righteous? If God puts no trust in his holy ones, and the heavens are not pure in his sight, how much less one who is revolting and corrupt, who drinks injustice like water? Listen to me, and I will inform you. I will describe what I have seen, what the wise have declared and not concealed, that came from their ancestors, to whom alone the land was given when no foreigner passed among them. A wicked person writhes in pain all his days. Throughout the number of years deserved for the ruthless. Dreadful sounds fill his ears. When he is at peace, a robber attacks him. He doesn't believe he will return from darkness. He is destined for the sword. He wanders about for food, asking, where is it? He knows the day of darkness is at hand. Trouble and distress terrify him, overwhelming him like a king prepared for battle. For he has stretched out his hand against God and has arrogantly opposed the Almighty. He rushes headlong at him with his thick studded shields. Though his face is covered with fat and his waistline bulges with it, he will dwell in ruined cities, in abandoned houses destined to become piles of rubble. He will no longer be rich. His wealth will not endure. His possessions will not increase in the land. He will not escape from the darkness. Flames will wither his shoots, and by the breath of God's mouth he will depart. Let him not trust in worthless things, being led astray, for what he gets in exchange will prove worthless. It will be accomplished before his time, and his branch will not flourish. He will be like a vine that drops its unripe grapes, and like an olive tree that sheds its blossoms. For the company of the godless will have no children, and fire will consume the tents of those who offer bribes. They conceive trouble and give birth to evil. Their womb prepares deception. And that is Job chapter 15. Again, here within this text, Eliphaz is most certainly making an accusation against Job, saying that he is someone who is arguing with God. He again makes an allusion to his iniquity, or he alludes to his iniquity in verse number 5. He tries to speak as if, he tries to speak as if he is, as if Job is just trying to work his way around the situation with crafty words. He says, your own mouth condemns you, not I. Your own lips testify against you. And again, I'm wondering, I don't really see what he's saying. I know Job, again, to me, Job is wrestling with what is going on. He is having trouble making sense with what they perceive to be the way that God works in reality. Again, they are operating on very strict terms, that God's justice will bless, that because God is just, he will bless those who are good. And if someone's suffering, that is an automatic sign and a demanded sign that they have sinned in some way. And of course, the greater the suffering, that must mean the greater the sin that has been committed. And here within this text, Eliphaz, he makes a play, or he makes a statement which tries to say that, well, all the evidence is with me. Again, the gray hair people are with me, the elderly are with me. I have all this truth, and your heart has misled you. And again, they're all making these assumptions purely based upon anecdotal evidence. Like, it's just upon what they believe they have observed and believe what they have seen. And he continues talking about this. Verse 17, listen to me, and I will inform you. I will describe what I have seen, what the wise have declared and not concealed, that came from their ancestors, to whom alone the land was given, when no foreigner passed among them. So here, I want to give you the conventional wisdom that we have all gained, and you just have to reckon with it, which, I mean, might be of some value sometimes, but again, to speak in this way, as if this is absolute truth that cannot be argued with, to me, it's very presumptuous on the part of Eliphaz, and Bildad and Zophar and Elihu also get involved in this as well. They all make these claims of absolute truth when they're just wrong. We know they're wrong, aren't they? We know they're wrong because we're looking back and we recognize that Job has not sinned. In at least he's not being punished for sin. Job was a person. He was a human. He did sin. There were instances in which he made mistakes. But what's happening here is not a result of that. In fact, what's happening here is a result of his righteousness. That his blamelessness and righteousness and godliness is what has brought this upon him, not by God, but by the Satan, by the devil, the accuser and the adversary, the tempter. This is all a part of his work. So we have to keep that in mind, that they're making these statements without knowing the full backstory as we do. Then he goes on and makes some again, absolute statements, which sometimes can be true. It is generally true that wicked persons do suffer in this life, that their wickedness is addressed, that their wickedness does bring trouble upon themselves. And yet, as we think about this text, this isn't always true. Sometimes good people get off without, or excuse me, sometimes bad people get away with things in this life. Sometimes bad people don't receive the justice that we would naturally assume they would receive for their wickedness. Sometimes bad people get off scot-free. Sometimes bad people suffer, or excuse me, sometimes bad people prosper, and sometimes bad people get they get in positions of power. Sometimes they very much benefit from those positions of power. Well, that's definitely not just. It's not just that bad people gain more power and more authority and more benefit from their wicked deeds. That's not right. But that's just reality of how things work. We know that, don't we? The preacher of Ecclesiastes says that explicitly within his text. I see a bad person who receives good things, and I see a good person who receives bad things. That's just the reality of life. But again, he does say some things that are true. Again, verse 31, let him not put trust in worthless things, being led astray, for what he gets in exchange will prove worthless. That's true. That's true. That whenever people put trust in things that are not trustworthy, bad things will happen to them. Um, but again, applying this to Job, just it's not accurate. It's not accurate to the situation. And if we had an opportunity to speak to Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar and even Elihu, I think that'll be something we have to share with them to recognize that, yeah, you might generally understand these things as being true, but you're speaking about something that you don't know the full story. You're being very presumptuous. And that is something I think that's certainly a lesson that I'm taking away from reading these speeches of these three men, is that they're very presumptuous. They think they know it all. And they're making very strong claims, which we know from the backstory just are not true. So that's really my takeaway for today's reading, is to just be humble, for us to be humble, for us to really try hard to be slow to draw conclusions, especially whenever we don't have all the evidence. Something might look a certain way on the surface, and past experience might lead us to believe that this is the exact same as what that previous experience bore out, but it might not be, because different situations might have different details, and we need to be, again, very, very slow to draw absolute conclusions and to seek to learn and to listen before we speak, before we conclude what we believe to be reality. So that's just something I take away from Eliphaz again. And I've mentioned parts of that before. Maybe I've mentioned all that in very similar detail. I can't escape it as I'm reading here about this situation. It's just very presumptuous. It's arrogant. It is drawing on just simple anecdotal evidence that may or may not be true. And one of the things I appreciate as well is that we have scripture. Again, I mentioned that yesterday, whereas they didn't. They didn't have scriptures. We have it today. And because of that, we can look and we can make judgments about things in reality that are based upon what we read within the text. Again, we read Ecclesiastes, where the good person doesn't get good things, the bad person does get good things. And we say that's just, fortunately, that's just the reality of life sometimes. That's how things happen. They did not have this. Therefore, they were making these conclusions based upon faulty data, and unfortunately led them to a faulty conclusion. So let's be humble in our estimations and our judgments, and seek as best we can to be slow in rendering those judgments, and to look for more evidence, and to extend grace as best we can. I certainly, Job's going to make a mention here in chapter 16. He's saying, you are all miserable comforters. There's no grace being extended to him, and he certainly feels that here in this moment. May we be better for those who are in difficult situations than these three friends who are coming in guns blazing, thinking they know it all, and drawing faulty conclusions that simply are not in line with reality. Thanks so much for tuning into this reading today. I hope that you have a good rest of your Thursday. Looking forward to being back at it again tomorrow as we read from Job chapter 16. Job's next speech is going to be broken up into 2 chapters. So we'll read 16 tomorrow and then get the second half of chapter 17 on Saturday. Thanks again for tuning in. God bless you. Take care.